My fish play of the week is the Ravens. I believe it is -1.5. Tim and Jack both played our favorite game on this YouTube channel on Monday. Have guessed the spread and thought the Cowboys should be favored at home, coming off a bad loss, with the Ravens looking shaky 0-2 off of a Raiders loss. I thought the Ravens would be favored. They end up being favored. I think they started at 1 and it's now at 1.5. For me, this looks like the books are absolutely begging everyone to take the Cowboys at home as underdogs, because the Ravens are 100% winning this game and they are trying to save themselves as much money as possible by potentially trapping people into a Cowboys at home off of a bad loss underdog play. This is just a game that the Ravens flat out win every single time. And I was talking to Jack about this earlier. This is a big inflection point of the Ravens season. Either this game is going to show the Ravens are still good, fourth or fifth Super Bowl favorites preseason, and everything is going to stay true. They're going to win this game and get back on track. Or what people have said is starting to creep in is shit might hit the fan for the Ravens. You go 0-3, Harbaugh's on the hot seat, the offensive line is a mess, and kind of where do the Ravens go from here? Do you blow it up and try and restart next year? I think the Ravens are still that team that's very good, and I think they win this game by around 6 to 9 points. I love the Ravens here. Lamar owns NFC teams. We've seen that time and time again. If you don't see Lamar often, teams struggle against him. That's why the likes of the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Browns have had some success against Lamar, because they see him a lot. They're used to it. NFC teams that have only seen him once or have never seen him before, they struggle big time. I love the Ravens in this spot. I would 100% guarantee that the Ravens cover and win this game. And on the other side of that, I am a Ravens fan, and if we lose, again, we do have that $25K prize if we continue to lose. So that's my play.
Jack, I mean, I think you should have the first word as the other Ravens fan.
Yeah, I guess I would question Casey's thought process here. He's saying we're at this inflection point. We don't know what this Ravens team is. Are they a disaster with a broken O-line, with a head coach on the hot seat that are, not putting the weapons next to Lamar Jackson that are perceived? Or is this a good team that lost 2 games that, the first one comes down to the end. The second one, they should have won that football game. They kind of collapsed at the end. I feel like everything you've said over the last 2 weeks is let's not dive into the unknown. And then you come and you say, I'm confident that they are this team. As a Ravens fan, I don't think the Ravens have earned that confidence at all. Like, the O-line is a massive problem. Harbaugh is on the hot seat. Tensions are high. There are question marks all across the board. So outside of Lamar against NFC, which I think that is a very strong handicap, Lamar is a favorite. Historically, he's better as an underdog. This is obviously a role where it's 1.5 points, so it's not going to make a huge difference. You do get a weird spot with the Cowboys, and you're talking about the sports books trying to trap people into betting Dallas. As much as Dallas gets flack for being America's team and the team that underperforms, maybe I'm off base on this. I don't feel like people rush to bet Dallas. Like, they aren't the team that, people rush to bet Kansas City. They rush to bet Philly. They love those types of teams. I don't feel like Dallas is necessarily that. So I just wouldn't make a pick on this. I do lean Ravens because of the Lamar NFC thing. I think it's very, very real. But yeah, Tim, I know you guys may have been leaning actually on Dallas, and I thought with Tim, Dallas was going to be 3-point favorites in this spot.
Yeah, so I think Casey brings up a good point when you talk about you think there's a lot more Dallas haters than people that like Dallas. Dallas is a New York Yankees, Notre Dame type brand. They do tend to be one of the most popular teams bet. It's almost like the Cowboy haters are louder than the Cowboys lovers because it usually ends up in flames. So I think that's where you could kind of misconstrue there. And that's something I hadn't considered when Casey said it, inviting Dallas money, basically. We're going to make them a short home dog here. I was trying to not get carried away by what happened Dallas getting blown out by New Orleans. There's a lot of theories that say like, hey, once a team's up big, like it's no different than just winning by one, right? Like, essentially, right? Where the game was so over that as much as they pile it on, it doesn't necessarily matter. And this is just to me, this is a statement that the odds makers think Baltimore is the better team. And I wasn't as sure. I think they're about even teams and honestly leaned Dallas as the better team. Again, 2 week sample size. I feel a lot worse about I think it's more of that I don't like the Ravens than I like Dallas. So again, if your reason is saying, look, they're inviting money here, let's go the other way. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It is a major inflection point for this Ravens team. And
I would even say it's a major inflection point for Dallas, because coming into the year, I didn't power rate them strongly, and the Ravens I power rated strong, but I was not saying they're the contenders for the AFC. And the O-line has really proven that. DVOA, even though they've gotten exposed through the air over the last 2 games, is still top 5 in the NFL. So there are those underlying metrics that are sound and are solid for the Ravens. But you go on the road, it is early in the year, but it feels do or die for both teams. It really does, especially for the Ravens with who they've got coming up. I'll throw one more stat at you. Lamar Jackson is the first MVP to start a season 0-2 since 2002, something that blew my mind. I mean, 0-2 isn't that crazy that an MVP couldn't fall into that. And then also Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Lamar hadn't lost back-to-back games in 3 seasons. Obviously, an injury in between there shortens the amount of games played. But he is a winner at the end of the day. And I will give Casey that as a Ravens fan. 20-1 against the NFC, and it should be 21-0 if we're being completely honest. They blew a game to the Giants that they had no business losing. So betting on the winner versus the team that always finds a way to fall on their face, it does feel like this is a fine bet.
My favorite play in this game would actually be Lamar over rushing attempts. It was 8.5. It's now 9.5. And I would like, if you don't want to go there, I'd like Lamar's yards as well. I think it's 58. He only ran the ball last week. You'd say 4 times. I'm not counting that last one. That was like the Hail Mary, effort. Yeah. He only ran the ball really 4 times in that game. And he ran the ball a billion times against the Chiefs. We know, an old theory that these quarterbacks in big games tend to be willing to use their legs more often. Rarely, I think, do we get a gift in a week 3 where it's as massive of a game, an inflection point for the Ravens, that I think he takes matters into his own hands more often here. They talked about after the Kansas City game, they can't run him that much. So then they go the complete opposite and they can't close the game out against Vegas. So I think Lamar's going to use his legs here for sure against Dallas.
You're 100% right. I think he does. He's shown that all the time, where he'll use his legs less in a game we're supposed to win. And right. Even more than his decision making against the Chiefs, he may have had 5 or 6 direct run plays for him called by the offensive coordinator.
Design runs,
whereas the Raiders, there was maybe 0 or 1. I think there will be at least 4 or 5 design runs for him to begin with. So yeah, I like.
By the way, you have to mention he popped on the injury report coming out of the Chiefs game, and he's a full go this week. So I played his unders going into last week, especially on the yardage and the rushing attempts, because of that injury designation. You if you follow the team that closely, I still do believe there's big edges in stuff like that. Not necessarily in picking teams, but knowing little things. I thought, unfortunately, it didn't pan out perfectly, but I had a call on Justice Hill to have 25-plus rush yards last week. He outsnapped Henry again as 10-point favorites. He would have hit that number plus 300, I would say, a majority of times. Still obviously crossed his normal prop at 14.5. But yeah, if you're in tune with rotations and styles, there are still edges to be had. When you get to the games and picking the sides, Tim, we were talking about this in Pittsburgh. It's just tough now. The data, the information, the amount of money being bet into a market, it just makes it so efficient.